Recording live from the virtual Lucky Number 7 Lounge, this is Dine, Drink Vegas, the podcast by and for everybody stuck at home, wishing they were in the land of neon lights and bad decisions. And you have stumbled across episode number 34, the Southwest Blues, where we're going to talk about our feelings about recent changes to formerly everybody's favorite cheap airline. We're going to dive into the Vegas news we thought was interesting, and even some Irish news that we also thought was interesting. And as always, we're going to get to that drink of the day. But before we can bring you any of those amazing things, we have got to welcome in the founder of Dine, Drink Travel, the high roller of the high plains, the king of comps, the leader in the luxury lounge, the Alabama slammer. Of course, I mean Bill. Good evening, Bill.
Good evening, John. How are you?
Well, I'm doing pretty good, other than the rant I'm about to go on. But I do think a drink or two might take the edge off. How about you?
A drink always helps, and that's the only way I ever got through your favorite airline in the first place.
Fair enough. Well, tonight's drink is called the Pan Am Clipper, and this was the signature cocktail for Pan Am Airlines back in the day when Pan Am was the ultimate luxury experience in the sky. And so you make a Pan Am Clipper by throwing into your favorite cocktail shaker along with a sufficient amount of ice, 2 ounces of some type of apple brandy, the airline called for Calvados, 3/4 of an ounce of lime juice, preferably freshly squeezed, half an ounce of grenadine, 2 dashes of absinthe, and then you shake all of that like it owes you money, strain it out, serve it in a coupe, and then garnish with a lime will. Bill, tell us about the version you made.
So I didn't, pardon me, I'm so sorry. I seem to have the hiccups. You were on a blooper reel earlier. Apparently, I'm going to be a perpetual blooper reel through this entire episode. You are welcome. I didn't have any absinthe. So what I had to do was take some star anise, put it in water, and I just let that soak in my glass while I was assembling the rest of the ingredients. Because Alabama is not necessarily the best at liquor distribution, what I had to do then was I used Yukon Applejack, which it turns out to be something I enjoy very much. But 2 ounces of it, I squeezed in 3/4 of an ounce of a fresh lime, and I think the fresh lime is key here. I try to use it whenever I can instead of the prepared lime juice, and then a half ounce of the a half ounce of the grenadine, and shook it with some ice, poured it neat, put in the apple slice, or rather the lime slice with it. What? Yeah.
So mine is a little bit closer to spec, I suppose, because I don't know about how Union Jack apple is, but I went with my favorite Laird's Bottled and Bond, but that means I'm rocking at 100 proof. Calvados is usually at 80, so a little higher strength. And then my grenadine comes from a company called Jordan Skinny Syrup, and it's sugar-free because I got the beatus, so that matters. And then I was a little bit heavy with the absinthe. And I'll be honest, my first sip, I really regretted having that heavy hand with the absinthe because all I got, because I probably had a 1/4 ounce, a full bar spoon of absinthe instead of just a rinse. Some versions of the recipe say rinse it and dump it out. Others say a couple dashes but leave it in. I've got like a bar spoon in here, but that licorice flavor is really strong. The first few sips, it really wasn't mixing well. Everything felt out of balance. But as it's warmed up, the apple flavors are a little more prominent. The balance with the lime juice is there. And actually, this has gone from something I didn't like when we first tried to record this episode, and I had the blooper-tastic intro that we're not going to air. But now that it's had a chance to warm up a little bit, I'm pretty fond of this.
So I'm trying to figure out what I think about the star anise in this drink, because normally that is not a flavor that I enjoy. And what I wasn't looking forward to in this drink was I assumed it was going to be far too sweet, because between the apple brandy and the grenadine, I don't know, I anticipated a drink that was going to be sweeter than I enjoyed. Oddly, I think that the star anise, so what's standing in for the absinthe for me, cut a little of that. So this isn't my favorite drink that we've ever made on this show, but it's probably my favorite licorice flavor that I've ever had,
Yeah.
just because it cuts the rest of the sweetness.
In a way, and even in the appearance, of course, we don't post the video for this because, trust us, we're not much to look at.
No, it's terrible.
But even the appearance of this drink looks a little bit like a Cosmopolitan. Mm-hmm. It's almost that same hue, not quite. It's not that cranberry pink, but it's reminiscent of that. I feel like this is a more sophisticated, more complex take on a Cosmo. Now, granted, this is cranberry. This is apple with a little bit of absinthe and grenadine as opposed to cranberry. So we've got pomegranate, we've got apple, it's a very different mix of ingredients. But to me, it's like a Cosmo grew up, and like I said, it's growing on me now. Not my favorite cocktail ever, don't get me wrong, but I certainly understand why a luxury airline from the days of yore would have viewed this as a wonderful drink to enhance the flying experience. And I point out that I picked this cocktail quite intentionally because it's about it. Yeah.
It's also a very different thing, right? Like, I can't think of anything like this that I've drank in any other context. And that would absolutely, if you're trying to create a custom airline cocktail to make your airline stand out.
Oh, we lost you, Bill. Oh, there you are.
Yeah. No, then this would do that.
So the reason I wanted to pick this drink has to do with the history of Pan Am Airlines. So in the glory days, in the golden age of flights, when in your favorite Cary Grant movie, everybody put on a suit or an evening dress and flew like they were going to a wedding. Pan Am was it. They were the luxury airline. But the longer the history of flying went on, they sort of tried to become a discount carrier. They lost their identity, and now there's no Pan Am. And I think that's a good juxtaposition to get into our rant with Southwest, because in a way, Southwest has been the antithesis of what Pan Am was in its prime. But what killed Pan Am was going from being something unique, in that case upmarket, and then becoming like every other carrier. So if you will, Pan Am was the leader in the luxury lounge and stopped being that thing and is now no more. Whereas Southwest, I think pretty comfortably has always been baller on a budget. But let's get into some of these changes, Bill. As we talked about on the podcast when it broke sometime last year, Southwest is planning on getting rid of their open seating policy. You'll have to pick your seats just like every other airline. Now they've announced that the bags fly free policy is no more. If you are A-list Premier, you get your bags for free. If you're A-list, you don't. If you're a credit card holder, which I am, you get one bag for free. And I just feel like when we're going to go to a boarding process and a seat selection and a baggage policy, just like every other airline, what's going to make Southwest Southwest? So, Bill, you think a fair bit about branding and communication and how to distinguish yourself. As somebody with some professional background in the art of communication and branding, how do you look at what Southwest is doing?
So, I fundamentally agree with you. I think that this is a problem for their branding, but I don't think it will cause people to quit flying them because I don't know that any of those factors were what caused people to fly Southwest in the first hand. My next door office neighbor, who used to be a fighter jet pilot in a previous life and is a far cooler human being than I am, he and his wife went to Las Vegas, I don't know, a few weeks ago. And the reason they took on Southwest, and the reason that they took Southwest to Las Vegas was that it was a nonstop flight. When I used to take Southwest to Vegas from the city you live in, the reasons I would do it was that it was a nonstop flight, and that's one of the reasons you do it. So sure, it's terrible for the branding, but Southwest does still have one distinct advantage, and that's that they've got a route network that lets more people fly to Vegas direct from whatever city they're from.
Yeah, and I do get that. And so I will say that in that regard, there's still going to be a lot of times when I wind up flying out of Southwest because from my local airport here in the wastelands, the barren wastelands of far west Texas, even though we have multiple airlines that fly out of our airport, you are probably going to get routed through Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, Denver if you fly any other carrier. But with Southwest, you've got a good shot at getting a direct flight, not just to Vegas, but a lot of destinations. Having said that, Bill, I have had brand loyalty with Southwest. There have been times that I've gone ahead and booked Southwest, even when I couldn't get the direct flight, and even when the price difference between Southwest and American was a negligible amount of money. Because even though I rarely check a bag, I like knowing that I can, and maybe that's weird, but also I like open seating. I like the boarding process. I kind of like, I get something out of that. And I think there's a personality that comes with Southwest and a community with the people who fly Southwest by choice that we like, that it's quirky and weird and different. And so the way I look at it now, instead of thinking I'm going to fly Southwest unless I've got to make 2 stops or I've got a big layover or that rare occasion when American actually is cheaper, because that doesn't happen often, but it does happen. Instead of thinking, well, my default is Southwest, now I'm thinking my default is what is the least amount of hassle to get from A to B. In other words, I no longer regard Southwest as my airline. I look at Southwest as an airline, and I'm going to become a comparison shopper rather than a brand loyal shopper. And I don't think I'm alone.
No, I don't think you're alone, but they're opening up a market to people like me, because I hate the Southwest boarding process. Like, every time I line up, people are like, "Can I see your boarding pass?" No, you can't. Like, you're not entitled to know my name and my booking number and all that sort of stuff. I'm whatever I am. I'm A3. I'm in the right place in line. I haven't flown Southwest in 2-3 years explicitly because of that. And the fact that I would have an assigned seat, I like better. So I'm actually now more likely to fly them.
Well, and I guess we're just going to have to see whether the loss of loyalty from people like me hurts them more, or whether becoming more like an average standard airline helps them more. So, yeah, you and I have 2 very different takes on that, and I guess we'll just have to see which one turns out to be the more financially sound decision for Southwest.
So, to your core point, I actually think that Southwest is making a mistake, because the original question you asked me was about corporate branding and distinctiveness, and they're losing that, right? Like, I think the Pan Am analogy here is excellent. I think this will hurt Southwest. I just don't think it's 100-0 thing for 2 reasons. One, it's a show about Vegas, so let's talk about the particular context of Vegas. Southwest has more direct flights to whatever city you're from than any other airline does, and that will continue to be a market advantage. The second reason that I don't think it's 100-0 problem is that it allows the possibility of people like me flying them who hate that open boarding process. On a fundamental level, you are correct. This hurts their branding. I just don't think it's all or nothing.
Okay. I think that's fair enough. Yeah, I will say, like, I was mad enough when they took the peanuts away. I know people have peanut allergies. I'm kind of with that one comedian that said, if we all just look the other way for 6 months, we'll never have to worry about peanut allergies again. but I got over that. I will say they have the world's best graham crackers. And as somebody with diabetes, they have these graham crackers in the morning that are actually not that bad for you. I'm not claiming they're health food, but the numbers on them, the macros are better than almost any other sweet treat you can get. And they only serve them in the morning. And Southwest, look, you're going to make us pay for bags. You're not going to let us have the open thing. Give me the graham crackers all day, every day. Okay. So if you're listening, Southwest, if one of our 17 listeners happens to work for Southwest, you're taking everything else I love. Give me the damn graham crackers all day. Maybe I'll change my mind.
Or join me at American Airlines and get a Biscoff.
I can get a Biscoff and then I can sit on the tarmac for 3 hours because Mike's probably on the plane with me and we're not going anywhere.
Oh, yeah, no, that's just bad luck is what that is.
Yeah,
all right.
That's, yeah. All right, well, let's jump into some Vegas news. So, Bill, I've never stayed at this property, but I've walked by it a million times. The Cromwell is going to rebrand to the Vanderpump, named after Lisa Vanderpump, who every new bar Caesars has built in the last, 3-4 years has also been named after. This after they've also expanded the number of Buddy Velostro and Gordon Ramsay and Guy Fieri and Bobby Flay locations. Bill, what do you think about all this celebrity branding at Caesars properties?
So I think it's making them kind of generic. I also, particularly with the Vanderpump / Cromwell, formerly known as Wild Bill's Gambling Saloon, I wish they would just pick an identity for that property and let it run for a while. But they won't, which speaks to the fact that most Caesars properties are losing distinctive identities anyway. So I actually feel more strongly about this than I do the Southwest Airlines story.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit mystified. I mean, I never got to go to Vegas in the heyday of the theming, but I like theming. I like New York, New York. I like Luxor. I like looking at Excalibur from the outside, at least. I wish the pirate show was still at Treasure Island. I miss the volcano. I think having those unique experiences was one thing because there was character, there was individuality, there was uniqueness. I think this chasing after influencers, celebrities, this is less appealing to me. This is like, when back in the day when there was Martha Stewart stuff at Kmart, you're still in the friggin' Kmart. Martha's not shopping there. Lisa Vanderpump is not staying at the Vanderpump. She's not. I don't think Gordon Ramsay eats at his own restaurants unless he's shooting a TV show. I don't know how often Guy Fieri goes to Flavortown. I don't want to get caught up in this cult of celebrity, even though I did eat a Buddy V pizza slice out of a vending machine one night at midnight at the Link. But that was survival pizza because I had made Vegas choices and I needed food or bad things was going to happen to me. But I just don't feel like, hey, look at this rich celebrity you'll never be like. Come stay at our property. That doesn't appeal to me.
That's because Vegas is appealing to a younger crowd than you and I are part of, which I think is a mistake because that younger crowd tends to be much earlier in their careers and have less money. So even if there are more of them, they're not as good for the Vegas economy. But I assume that the good people at CET, Caesars Entertainment, have some idea of what they're doing.
Maybe, but when you talk about that younger crowd, I don't know that Gen Z really cares about Guy Fieri's Frosted Tips. So I feel like that younger crowd is millennials because I'm not sure Gen Z cares. And I feel like if that's what they're doing is trying to trend younger, they're trending under Gen X. But that's going to be a very short play.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what else do we have going on in the news, John?
Well, let's see. We've got a bunch of stories from Scott at Vital Vegas because let's be honest, this entire podcast is just us rehashing stuff Scott tweeted. But one of the first stories he gives us is that the Holstein's location, right there by the Block 16 food hall at Cosmo, which, by the way, one of my favorite places to grab some affordable eats, not cheap, affordable, high-quality eats. Holstein's Burgers has been out for a while, and they are getting a smash burger joint called Naughty Patty. It's going to be a pinup girl diner motif. Apparently, at the bottom of the cardboard, there's going to be a naughty-looking girl giving you the finger. I don't know. So they're going for something kind of cheeky, kind of immature. I do think Cosmo needs a good burger place. So what do you think? You into pinup girls and smashed up beef?
So I'm sure it'll be a lovely burger. When I want a burger and I don't need a theme around it. Like, I wish they would install some more In-N-Out burgers or Five Guys or something like that, because that's generally what I'm going for. So I'm sure this place will be fine. And if that's where the group's going, I'm happy to go. I don't know. I see no need to go there on my own.
I will say one of the great things about the location, it's not in the food hall, it's across the way, but you can get your food to go and come sit in the food hall. It is an opportunity for everybody in the group to get something they want. Egg Slut is right there. Speaking of classy places, for your breakfast sandwiches, you got District Donut, and you have, like, I'm telling you, Bill, Lardo sandwiches at Cosmo. Oh, I'm telling you. I know you think you're not going to Vegas to eat a sandwich, and I get it. This is not Subway. This is not Firehouse. This is not even, Lord bless the state of Texas, a Schlotsky's. Lardo is something else. And I am telling you, the sandwich at Lardo, the porchetta sandwich, is easily one of my top 5 lunches in all of my trips to Vegas. You got to check that out.
I trust you on this point. I will do it as soon as I can.
So the next story that we also got from Scott is now saying that the big Golden Nugget, I think it's called the Hand of Faith, at the Golden Nugget is a replica, and that the real Hand of Faith is at the Golden Nugget in close to your neck of the woods, Biloxi, Mississippi. Say, Bill, when's the next time are you going to Biloxi, and will you get a chance to scout this out for us?
So we are recording this on a Friday night. I am going to Biloxi on Sunday. Now, I'm staying at the Hard Rock and at the Beau Rivage, which is a couple of miles, and it's walkable, but you got to be pretty committed to it. I have been in that Golden Nugget in Biloxi. I didn't see it, but I kind of want to go check it out now, because that's a cool artifact, and there are a whole lot of things in Biloxi that at one point were destined for Vegas. So this is a story I can absolutely see being true, right? Like, we know that the Beau Rivage was the original name that was going to be given to the Bellagio. We know that the Beau Rivage has got things like the Salt and Ivy Cafe that they have down at the Aria. So sure, maybe the Golden Nugget did the same sort of thing, right? And moved the original nugget there. If I get a chance, I will go down to that end of the beach strip and check it out.
Well, I hope you get to do that, because I think we need some hard-hitting investigative journalism to see whether or not Scott got this right, or whether he had a Captain and Diet Pepsi and made some stuff up. Either way, I'm not mad at him. All right, and here's after that, he also said, and this is right up your alley, that Prime Steakhouse at the Bellagio is back open for business after a refresh. Your thoughts on Prime at Bellagio?
So I have eaten at Prime several different times. I've actually got a really good picture of you and me and our buddies Mike and Zero and Derek at Prime almost 6 years ago now. So I really enjoyed that steakhouse. I was unaware that they were closed. I'm kind of curious to go check it out. So yeah, that's probably one of those ones I actually will go look at some point. What do you think about Prime?
I agree. Like, I tend to be of the mind that Vegas has so many great steakhouses. that I don't generally recommend people to go to the most expensive ones, not because they're not amazing, they are, but because there's so many good steakhouses. You don't necessarily have to spend big bucks to get an amazing steak. The 12th best steakhouse in Vegas is probably way better than the best steakhouse in your hometown, unless you happen to be from another metro with a lot of steakhouses. That said, anytime you're there along the lakefront at Bellagio, especially if you can get seated outside on the patio, but even in the building where you can see out, Prime is one of those I'm willing to pay the Vegas Strip prices for because it ain't cheap. You're going to fork over some money to eat at Prime. That's one of those steakhouses that not my go-to, but if I'm with a group, like if it's the guys or if we're there with our wives and we decide we want to go to Prime or you decide or whoever, I'm not going to fight that one. I'm more than happy to go back to Prime. That's worth splurging for.
Yeah, no. So this is one of those I actually do want to check out. And I'm trying to figure out why I like Prime more than, say, the SW Steakhouse House at the Wynn. But I think I just do. So cool. I will go check that out.
Yeah. I think for me, and I haven't been to SW Steakhouse, but my general feel on the Wynn, I've become middle class bougie enough after shedding my white trash roots that I can be comfortable in the Bellagio for the most part. When I walk into Wynn, I keep thinking security is going to escort me out. Bellagio's fancy, but I'm comfortable with it. Wynn, yeah, still not there. All right, well, let's go to the opposite end of Bellagio and Wynn. So Scott also shared that there's been an update to the little pool area at the Oyo, which used to be the Hooters Resort and Casino, just off the Strip. And it looks nice. They've got a DJ. They've got live games. Bill, do you care that Oyo's got a better pool now?
No, it's somehow they took the Hooters and downgraded it.
Yeah.
I can't imagine why that's a place I would go.
Yeah, I try to take the angle of baller on a budget because not everybody has a lot of money to spend in Vegas. There's no baller here. And having a budget place to stay isn't worth it if it's not a good place to stay. They're going to have to do a lot more than a slightly nicer pool to make me even look twice at that property because I've read too many horror stories about broken furniture, roaches, stains in the elevator. Yeah, I'll pass.
I'm going to make a bold statement, John, and you're not going to believe it. But I would actually rather stay at the Golden Gate than I would there at the Oyo. Like I'm not interested.
Yeah, well, the Golden Gate is not, the regular rooms are postage stamps. I know the suites are weird, but they're good. That 2-bedroom suite, I've been trying to talk you into that for years. That is supposed to be one of the best rooms in all of downtown.
Yeah, no, that'd be great.
So, all right. Let's see what else we have on the run sheet tonight. Now I'm doing it. All right. The book Vegas, Fremont to the Strip by Mark from 360 Vegas has officially become a bestseller on Amazon. I've got my copy, Bill, but I haven't read it yet. Have you had any interest in getting this? And it's like a 600-page tome on the history of Vegas by a podcaster who has a lot more listeners than us. And by the way, if you've never listened to Mark get nagged at by his wife, Karen, who I'm sure is a lovely person, but boy, does she chew his ass, which is kind of entertaining. It's nice to see some other podcasters doing well. I don't know. Have you thought about picking this one up?
So I actually was unaware that it was a thing. I am interested. How much did the book cost you?
I think it was like $20. There's not a lot of. I was hoping there would be more pictures. Honestly, from the way they talked about it on the podcast, I thought it might be more of like a big coffee table book with a lot of photos. It's not that. But hey, in the event, Mark and Karen, if you happen to hear this, and Karen, I'm just kidding. I love your podcast. You're amazing. Mark and Karen, if y'all happen to catch this episode, if you think about putting out a version 2 of the book with a whole lot of pictures in that large coffee table format, I would gladly buy a second copy because I think that'd be great. But I have thumbed through and read a few passages. It seems to be really well written, and I'm looking forward to carving out some time this summer to get it read.
Awesome. Well, I may go pick it up myself then. Yeah.
All right. Well, next on the list, and I think this might bring up a conversation of how we spent our spring break last year. Eater Vegas dropped a list of the best places to watch March Madness in Vegas, but they didn't give us a top 10 places. It's more different categories: sports books, sports bars, themed events, and then they cite some examples. So it's a helpful article, but I kind of wish they would have done some ranking. Bill, you and I had a chance to watch some basketball at the Plaza. Is that a thing you would do again if our calendars aligned?
So yeah, we did that 2 years ago. We did that in 2023. And it must have been because Mark was with us, right?
Oh, yeah.
Drinking all of the Coors Light.
Yes. And I mean all of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it very, very much. So one possibility is to simply find your favorite hotel, find whatever event they've got. It's probably a pretty good deal. But I'm a really big fan in Vegas. If you're watching sports ball, doing what we do on the guys' trip over Labor Day, and somebody just gets a nice hotel suite, because then you don't have to be polite in the presence of others. You don't have to worry if somebody else is yelling during a key moment in the game or something like that. You just go to the ABC or the CVS stores. You pick up whatever kind of liquor you want. To me, the best place to watch March Madness in Vegas is in a proper suite in whatever hotel you happen to like. Now, if you want the more public and social experience, I don't think it really matters. Every sports book is going to have some sort of a promotional package. Just kind of pick the place you want to be. But yeah, I would do this in a private hotel suite. What about you, John? What would you do?
I think it depends on the stage of the tournament that you're in. I think if you're if you're locked in on one particular team, or if we're at the stage, if we're down to the Final Four or the Elite Eight, and there's only one game on at a time, watching in a suite, just like we would with a football game or any other single sport, I think you're on to something. But early in the tournament, where there may be as many as 4 games happening at once, I think you do have to be in a bigger venue with multiple screens. And that can get spendy. I mean, some of the places like, the sports book at Circa, which is normally free. If you could find a seat, you can sit there. They are going to charge seats for this. I think when you're in the stage of the tournament where multiple games are happening at the same time, you really need to be in a venue with multiple screens, because that's the only time you're not going to be able to get that experience in your suite. So I think you're right when we're at the Elite Eight and later. But early in, round of 64, round of 32, round of 16, at that stage in the tournament, I want to be in the big venue.
Okay, so I can see your point. I guess the problem is that I'm not a generic basketball fan, and I'm probably not watching more than one game at a time anyway. But sure, if you're doing what most people do, that particularly that first week of the tournament, the week that we're in right now, then I absolutely see your point. And it was an experience I enjoyed very much.
Yeah. And I think too, we didn't, and Zero asked us to, and we just didn't, and you didn't, then I kind of teased you about it, and I started to, and then I didn't. We don't have brackets going this year, and most of us don't know squat about NCAA basketball anyway. I didn't even realize John Calipari was out of Kentucky until halfway through the season. That's how much attention I pay. But I do think if you've got a bracket going on with friends, or if you go in there and you take whatever you're comfortable with, a $20 bill, a $100 bill, and you've got a bet on multiple games, being in there is fun. And man, I remember there was one game where the table in front of us were all alumni from one of the schools, and their team won a nail biter. And watching those guys live and die by every basket, I didn't care. But watching those guys live and die by every basket, that was a lot of fun.
No, that's totally fair. That was you know what? I will retract my previous statement. I'd still rather have the suite for football when there's a game, maybe 2 that you're watching. But sure, for the kind of social experience that the NCAA tournament, basketball tournament is, yeah, something like this. That was a lot of fun. I wouldn't mind doing that again.
I think mostly you like watching in the suite because you don't want the general public to see you weep when the Aggies break your heart yet again. Uh,
They don't have any other way to beat, right? Like that's just what they
yeah.
do.
Hey, I'm a Cowboys fan. Disappointment is the norm. So
It,
I
it
understand.
it reigns supreme. Can I take the next story, John?
Of course you can.
So, multiple outlets are reporting the impending closure of the Luxor Buffet. I've got video of the Luxor Buffet up on the Dine Drink Vegas YouTube channel. And on the one hand, it was never very good. It was kind of sad and tired, and it needed to go. But on the other hand, I am saddened by the fact that so many buffets in Las Vegas are getting shut down because that was for so long such a key part of the Las Vegas experience. And that's yet one more link in the chain, which is Dine. So I am unhappy with this news story. John, do you care at all?
I don't. And again, this is because I started to go to Vegas at a different stage in the evolution of Vegas. And so by the time I started being able to get to Vegas, the $4 buffet was dead. And so from my point of view, having not experienced that time period, I think that if your buffet cannot offer truly premium food, which is going to come at a premium price. I mean, try getting out of the Buck and All or the Wynn for under a Benjamin Franklin, right? You're going to pay big bucks. But if your buffet cannot give me an elite gourmet experience while assaulting my senses with an incredible barrage of food, I would rather have the food court. I would rather spend my $40 to get a $12 entree from one vendor and, a snack over here, a couple different things. I would rather go with the food hall option. I think the food hall, the Proper Eats food hall at Aria is a good example. Block 16 at Cosmo is a good example. I would rather have the food hall than a mediocre buffet. So I'm okay with thinning the buffet herd a little bit. But I do understand that for people like you who've been going to Vegas longer, I do get missing the nostalgia for days gone by. But yeah, for me, I was never going to eat at that buffet.
So I get it. And yeah, to your point, sure, that wasn't a very good buffet, but I enjoyed the social act of, you all went to one place, you could find something you wanted to eat. It was fairly quick. So yes, you are correct. It is mostly a nostalgic thing, but I also I like eating off of buffets. Like I am still willing to eat at a Golden Corral every now and again, just because I like going to pick out my food and sitting down pretty quickly.
Yeah. I worked at a Golden Corral once upon a time. I've seen things that can't be unseen.
Well, then let's move to what is quite possibly the polar opposite in times of stories. And listeners, I am sorry, not sorry, that I'm going to share something not at all Vegas related. And I will be brief, but sometimes the world needs to celebrate heroes. And John Hemingway was an Irishman who lived in Dublin. In 1940, Ireland was by then independent of the United Kingdom. But for reasons that I haven't been able to read about yet, Group Captain John Hemingway joined the Royal Air Force. He joined the British Air Force in time for the Battle of Britain in 1940. He flew a ton of combat missions, shot down a large number of German fighters, was responsible for helping save the UK from the British invasion. He was shot out of the air 4 different times during World War II. And in spite of being shot out of the air 4 different times in World War II, died Monday. And by Monday, I don't mean a random Monday in the 1940s. I mean Monday, St. Patrick's Day of 2025. The dude clearly led a charmed life. He held all of the military decorations from His Majesty the King, and then Her Majesty the King, and then at the end of his life, His Majesty the King. But this man was a truly heroic example of good things, and I would encourage you to look up the story of John Paddy Hemingway and what he says about air power in the defense of freedom.
I think that's a phenomenal story, and I've got to respect anybody who, much like younger me, could get shot down over and over and still try to fly again.
I'm going to
Or
guess, John, and I say this with love, but the way that you and I got shot down in high school, my guess is that Group Captain Hemingway did not probably have that particular challenge.
he was shot down under over the skies of Europe. I was shot down inside of the Cactus Moon honky tonk. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, except for the part where it's totally not.
Fair enough. All right.
Yeah.
On that note, listeners, I think that's all the damage we're going to do for this particular episode. Bill, why don't you tell everybody where they could find even more Dine Drink Vegas content?
So you can find us on literally every social media platform at Dine Drink Travel. You can also find us on YouTube at Dine Drink Travel, where we talk a little bit about cruises, mostly about air travel, and sometimes about destination hotels. You can also find us on YouTube at Dine Drink Vegas, where we almost entirely talk about trips to Vegas, but coming up this weekend, we have a trip to Gulf Coast Vegas, where I will review some of the nicer properties in Biloxi, Mississippi, which is trying very hard to be Vegas, but with better seafood and better Southern food.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful thing. You can find me at Dine Drink John on Twitter, X, or whatever the heck it is. And that is all for us this week. If you've got a friend that enjoys Las Vegas or an enemy who hates podcasts by middle-aged white men, please share this with them so they could give us a listen. And until the next episode, happy travels.